Hello everyone, Professor Sexton with our video lecture on paper 3, your last and final paper for the semester. I'm going to have a few documents that I'm going to share during this video lecture, and also let me just give you a heads up. This video lecture is going to be working for two courses, so this will be working for both my section FNT 1 class and my section B13E class. So what I'll do is in the process, I'm going to share documents that are for the FNT1 and then also for the B13E. But in a folder, what I'll do in course documents, I'll create a folder with the paper information. And so you can access that individually on Blackboard just to see that. So first of all, let me begin by sharing the document that has the paper assignment up on it. So it should be loading up. So here we are. So I am actually just going to read this. So this is your last and final paper over short stories. So let me just begin. For your final paper, choose only one of the following topics. Be certain to read the topic carefully and be certain that your essay fully addresses all aspects. So the first topic from which you can choose is on Kate Chopin, The Story of an Hour. Here's the assignment. In Kate Chopin's The Story of an Hour, settings, both time period and physical ones, are important. Chopin's story was published in 1894, so you can consider the 1890s. Physical settings are limited in that they occur only in the various parts of the Mallard's house, near the front door, on the staircase, in Miss Mallard's room, and outside her window. Choose any three settings and analyze how they express the central theme of the story. In developing your essay, you must first determine the central theme in the story. Then you want to consider how the three settings you have selected illustrate that theme. You may want to focus on what they represent both literally and figuratively, what happens in them, are they private and public, and so on. Your main purpose in this essay is to analyze how these three settings illustrate the central theme you have identified. So if you go with option number 1, Kate Chopin's Story of an Hour, the first thing that you have to do is you have to determine what is the theme of this story. Now, keep in mind, a theme is more than just something like, you can't just say a theme is love or a theme is marriage. That's not a theme. For it to be a theme, the story has to say something about love or something about marriage. So the first thing is for Kate Chopin's Story of an Hour, what do you consider to be the theme of this story? What topic does this story explore and what does this story reveal about that topic? Once you have determined that, then you need to choose three settings in the story which you need to analyze. One setting would be, is the time period. So this is written in the 1890s. So you can explore how the 1890s illustrate and support that theme that you identified. Then the other two settings would have to be physical settings. And keep in mind, this whole setting occurs in the Mallard's house. So you don't go outside the Mallard's house. So you're in the living room, you're in Mrs. Mallard's bedroom. You do have the open window outside of Mrs. Mallard's bedroom. And even though she doesn't physically go out in that space is very important to the story. So you can do that as well. So if you go with number 1, first you need to decide what is the theme of this story, and then you need to choose three settings in the story and explain and illustrate how those settings relate to the theme that you have selected. So that would be option number 1. Option number 2 is on William Faulkner's A Rose for Emily. So let me read this one. The narrator, townspeople, in William Faulkner's A Rose for Emily explain that they have always thought of Miss Emily and her father as a tableau. Miss Emily, a slender figure in white in the background, her father, a spry silhouette in the foreground, his back to her and clutching a horsewhip, the two of them framed by the back-flung front door. So for this paper assignment, what you need to do is you need to analyze the description of Miss Emily and her father. And what you're doing if you do option number 2 is you're trying to answer these questions. What does the relationship between Emily and her father, what does that description reveal about the relationship between Emily and her father? So you're looking at that one as the tableau, with Miss Emily as a slender figure in white, her father is a sprightly silhouette in the foreground. So what does that description reveal about the relationship between Emily and her father? Second, explain how this relationship with her father influences her relationships with others, particularly the townspeople and Homer Baron. And so for this topic, this whole topic is all about Emily's relationship with her father, and you have two goals. Um, First of all, explain what is the relationship between Miss Emily and her father. And it's not only that tableau scene where the relationship between Emily and her father shows up. Remember that at the very beginning of the story, Emily has a crayon portrait of her father in her room. And she also has that portrait of her father comes back to play later on in the story as well. You got to keep that in mind. And then you need to explain how Emily's relationship with her father has influenced the way that she reacts to the townspeople there, and also how it influences her relationship with Homer Baron. So that would be the option for number two. The third one is about Alice Walker's everyday use. So here's the topic. In Alice Walker's everyday use, Mama Mama explains the forceful way in which Dee used to read to her and Maggie. She used to read to us without pity, forcing words, lies, and other folks' habits, whole lives upon us too, sitting trapped and ignorant underneath her voice. She washed us in a river of make believe and burned us with a lot of knowledge we didn't necessarily need to know. Analyze Mama's description of Dee regarding reading to her and Maggie and how it reflects a difference of lifestyle and a view of knowledge. What does Mama mean by knowledge burning, and how does this ideal of burning connect to Dee? Also, analyze another scene in the story that illustrates the difference of how Mama and Maggie view knowledge compared to how Dee views knowledge. Your main purpose in this essay is to analyze how Dee's view of life and education knowledge differs from that of her mother's and Dee. So for this one, you're actually doing a type of comparison contrast paper where you're looking at Dee's view of life and education and knowledge versus Mama's and Dee's view. And so, what in the story shows that difference of lifestyle and that difference of view of knowledge? You need to also analyze that quotation. So, what exactly does Mama mean when she says, Dee read to them, burning them with a lot of knowledge that they didn't necessarily need to know? And how do you connect that viewpoint to this difference between knowledge, education, and lifestyle that is shown in the story? For each of these three topics, there are a list of questions at the end that I've just read. So you want to make sure that when you are constructing your paper, that your paper is addressing those issues. Drafting tips are the same things that we've seen on all the other assignments. Let me reshare the files because for some reason my computer shut down for a moment. So let me just bring this up again. And so it's loading. All right. And so here's a few things for this paper assignment. And these are a few things that some of you have been ignoring in the last few paper assignments. So first of all, your paper needs a title. Your title needs to be more than just the short story. So if you're doing everyday use, your title should not be everyday use. Your title should not be paper 3. Your title should be something that reflects your viewpoint and what you're arguing about the story. Suggested page length for this paper is 3 to 5 pages. Keep in mind that it's suggested, but if it is done really well with the appropriate introduction and conclusions, well-developed body paragraphs, use of quotations and quotations used effectively, it should fall somewhere between the 3 to 5 page range. If you want me to read a draft or an outline of this paper, you need to email it to me by Sunday, May 1st by 11:59 p.m. I know that's not a lot of time, but I want it by then, so it gives me time to read it, comment on it, and get back to you. This paper has a quick turnaround time, so this paper is actually due on Sunday, May 8th at 11:59, posted to Blackboard. This deadline is absolute, and there are no extensions. So my advice to you is do not wait until the last minute to start the paper. So I would not wait until May 6th or May 7th to begin this paper. I would actually start working on it as soon as possible. So give yourself enough time to work on it, to reread it, to make sure that you are answering all the questions that the paper assignment called for you to do. Also, keep in mind that with this last paper, it cannot be revised. So that's another reason why you want to really work on this one ahead of time and not wait to the last minute. There are two other documents that I want to share, and this is how I'm going to split them up. So I'm going to show you a model paper, because in a lot of the paper assignments that I've been reading in the past, a lot of your paper assignments have not been following this. And so one of the things that I want to point out too is like MLA formatting. So this is MLA formatting, and keep in mind, this is what you have to have in order to get the 5 bonus points. So your first and last name, then my name, Professor Sexton, then the course, English 102. If you're in section B13E, you put B13E here. If you're in the other section, it's 102 section F and T1, and then the date. Notice the way that the date is put in. You put the numerical date first, so it'll be A. You spell out the month, May, all 4 digits of the year. Notice that there is no punctuation marks between there. And so a lot of you have been doing this, but what you've not been doing is this. So in the right-hand margin, you need your last name and the page number. And so for a lot of you, the reason why you've not been getting the 5 bonus points is that you've not been including this information. So you need to do that. And then look at this title. This is on a different story. This is on something called the Metamorphosis, which we didn't read. But notice how this title says, "Don't Bug Me, the Burdens of Excessive Care." What Daniel Chai did for this title is he picked a title that related directly to his paper and the issue that he addressed. Also notice how the paragraph is indented here. So the first sentence of each new paragraph is tabbed or indented 10 spaces. For most of you, if you just push tab, that'll do that automatically. Every new paragraph is also indented. So notice that Daniel has done that here. And you keep continuing to do that. And also, just another thing about the bonus points, on every subsequent page of your paper, you put your last name and the page number. So keep in mind, like on the first one, you have all this information and the last name and the page number. But for every subsequent page, you have just the last name and the page number. And just one more time. So it's done there as well. Another slide that I just want to show, just so you can remember about the bonus points. And this one I'm going to do for the FNT1 class. So there's a document that I put in that what you have to do for the bonus points. And so it's your first name, your last name, page number. Notice the order in which this is done. Some of you have been putting this information, but you've been putting it in the wrong order. If you put it in the wrong order, you've not been getting the bonus points. So it's very simple there. The first sentence of each new paragraph must indented, explains how to do that. So what I am going to do is, in addition to the paper assignment and course documents, I am going to create a folder, just a short folder with 2 documents in it, MLA formatting. And what I'll do is I'll put the sample paper and put this sheet in as well, because in order to get the 5 bonus points, you need to do that. I do want to go back to one other thing about the model paper as well, because I noticed that in a lot of the papers as well, quotations are not being handled correctly. And so what I want to do is I want to show you in this model paper a use of quotations. So notice, I'm going to show you two actually. Let me just go back here. So in this sample, look here. So here, this student, Daniel Chai, writes, the novella begins with an introduction of Gregor Samsa as an insect. Prior to his supernatural transformation, Gregor was the sole source for family's financial needs. Because of this duty, his concern isn't primarily on his condition, but on his ability to attend work. So this is Daniel's point. But then what he does is he uses a quotation from the text to support that. But notice because he has a complete sentence, he puts a colon, then he opens up the quotation mark, he ends the quotation, open parentheses, author's last name, page number, close parentheses, period. Notice that there is no punctuation between the author's last name and the page number. Notice there is no punctuation mark here. For a lot of the other papers that I've seen for paper 1 and paper 2, some of you are getting this right, but a number of you are not. So I want you to pay really close attention to that. There's another way to use quotations as well. And let me just find another instance when the student does that. So look here on this page. In this situation, what Daniel Chai does is he incorporates the quotation into his own sentence. So this is his sentence. Their activities, which were previously done in isolation and respect to one another, are contrasted to their picnic at the end of the novella, where, quote, all three of them leave the apartment together, something they haven't done for months, end quote. So when the quotation becomes a part of your normal sentence, you don't need the colon there. You just bring them together and then you close. And then once again, keep that the parenthetical citation has the author's last name and the page number. One slight difference, if the author's last name had been mentioned in the sentence, then you wouldn't need the last name here. So for instance, if in this sentence, Chai wrote, Kafka emphasizes, then it would just be 52. So for this paper, keep in mind, and you should have been doing this for all the papers, but keep in mind that to get the bonus points, you have to have this information, and it has to be in this order. But also, you need to also be using quotations correctly as well. I would try to put a different document in that course document about paper format that kind of give you an idea of the quotations as well. So keep in mind for this paper that if you want me to read a draft of it, I'll need that draft by Sunday, May 1st. It can be a draft, it can be an outline, it can be your main points, and then the paper is going to be due Sunday, May 8th, with no extensions to deadlines or anything of that nature. If you have any questions about the paper assignment before you begin working on it, feel free to email me, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you have about this paper assignment. Okay, everyone, that's it. Enjoy your week, and I'll see you in our next video lecture. Bye.